Alright, welcome to this video in which we're going to be looking at the next phase of our unit, in which we're going to be combining these three things here, and it's percentages, decimals and fractions. So already in the previous videos we've looked at decimals and fractions, so we probably have a good understanding of that. But now we want to add in the percentages, okay? So these three here, they all sort of interrelate. And by that I mean that we can have sort of any number and we can sort of represent that number as either a percentage, we can represent it as a decimal, and also as a fraction. So all three of these are quite linked, and we're going to be looking at these in the next series of videos. So before we get into how we write percentages as fractions and decimals, it's important that we understand percentages first. Okay, so I'm going to write, when we break down the word percentages, we usually get per cent. Okay. Now, what that basically means is out of 100. Okay, so you hear this all the time when we use it in our everyday language. For example, you gave 100%, etc. So the word percentage or percent means out of 100. So this number here plays a big role when we're looking at percentages and helping us understand how we can write these numbers as fractions and decimals. So when we write percentages, we use a symbol which you'll see up here, which is that symbol there. We sort of think of it, try to think of it as another way of writing 100. So you've got your 1 through the middle and your 2 arrows either side. That basically just means out of 100. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at how we can see using a percentage as a number, how do we write percentages as fractions and decimals. And this is always going to come back to this key point here. So the first one we're going to be looking at is, we're going to use this as an example, our 12% here. How can we turn 12% into a fraction? Okay. Now, as I've said before, the way that we do percentages as fractions is it's out of 100. So the way that we write this is when we have a percentage, the number in the percentage goes as the numerator, which means it's at the top of the fraction. Therefore, the bottom, of course, is then going to be 100. So if we wanted to change 12% into a fraction, it would look like this. The 12 would go as the numerator, and then it would be out of 100. Okay, so a fraction looks like this. Now always remember that you need to simplify that. So if you go through that process, make sure you simplify down. So I can see that the common factor here is 4. So that will be 3, when it's simplified, 3 over 25. So that basically means 12%. And that also means 12%. So that's how you write a percentage as a fraction. Now let's look at how we write a percentage as a decimal. So this will give you a big clue here as we move it down to here. So if we wanted to write this as a decimal, now remember, it's out of 100. So basically all we're doing with the percentage here is dividing it by 100. And we know the rule that when we have 12, okay, our decimal point will be here. We have 12 as a whole number. If I'm going to divide this number by 100, all I do is move to the right, the number of zeros that there are. There are 2 zeros in the 100, so the decimal place will move 1, 2. Okay, so the answer will be 0.12. So that's the way that we can write percentages as both fractions and decimals. Make sure you remember those two and write down those notes. And if you have any questions, make sure that you ask me either in the comments or that you can ask me in class as you go. So remember, 12%, when you want to write it as a fraction, it goes as a numerator over 100. When you want to write it as a decimal, you divide that number by 100 and you move that decimal place 2 to the left. In the next video, we're going to be looking at how we can turn fractions and decimals into percentages. Thanks, boys.